Good evening, morning, afternoon. Today's readings are really interesting to me because there are times where I'm kind of gathering my thoughts and looking through and reading it, two or three times and trying to kind of separate fire and brimstone and all that, and decide which reading is going to be at times most convenient. And today, I read through it immediately. Today's gospel, it's Jesus said to his disciples, "Stay awake, for you do not know on which day your Lord will come." And it jumps ahead. For an hour, for at an hour you do not expect the Son of Man will come. And immediately, I had that moment that hopefully I'm not alone in this. Hopefully there are many of you out there who have had those experiences where we found our faith and we found that presence of God and the image of Jesus and in someone, in some place, at some time where we were least expecting it, where we just weren't looking for it, and for me, I was immediately reminded of a trip we had, I want to say just a couple of years ago. Now I'm remembering some of the students that were on it, so it was several years ago. But it was to the Navajo reservation, and while we were there, on Saturday evening each year, we will go and help prepare a meal and serve it at Casa San Martin, one of Mother Teresa's shelters. I know many of our parishioners have supported this for years with the Giving Tree Project, but that's where we do an afternoon or early evening of service, and we had this experience where the nuns there, the sisters, asked us to lead prayer. So I'm looking around at our group, and it's kind of a rowdy group of guys. It's unlike any shelter or soup kitchen that I have ever been to. And if I'm being really honest, a lot of the men who have a meal decide to stay the night, and you're not allowed to stay if you're drinking. So what a lot of the men will do is in line they'll drink, and then they'll throw their bottle out before they come in the door, and they come in seeming all right, and then 10, 15, 20 minutes later they're a little more belligerent. So in this spirit, we're asked to lead prayer. So I'm looking around, and I got I got a few kids that are probably most appropriate here back at home, and I look and I don't think he'd mind me using his. I see Joe Gallagher, and I'm like, Joe's a big football player. He's a good guy. He's got a big heart. He's a charismatic leader, but he's also a big dude. And so that's great. We're gonna have Joe lead prayer. Nobody's gonna interject, right? He's got it. And he starts. Joe's also, he is a charismatic leader, so he tried to make this prayer like interactive, and it didn't go well. And right away, some of the guys there were, he talked about God's love, and there were guys who were right away, shouting out, God doesn't love me, and I forget, I honestly forget what happened, if Joe kind of tried to recover, if I jumped in and just kind of did a closing thing, and I know the sisters are there, and it's amazing to me, these little 5'0" women will run up and grab him by the ear, and the guys all behave. But one of the guys was especially, poorly behaved, for lack of a better description. And I'm I'm there to serve a meal, but I'm really there for our group, you know. So my loyalties obviously lie with the students, and it's where I feel protective. So if someone's having a hard moment and really disrespectful, I'm more aware of Joe than I am that guy. And you know, a few minutes later, I'm just kind of aware of the fact that that there is a guy standing near me, and I kind of look over. And it's that guy, you know, it's the guy who was really argumentative, or especially argumentative with Joe, and he says my daughter died. I have no idea what that means. You know, I don't know if this was 10 years ago and I just said, I'm so sorry, you know, and I started talking to him, and lo and behold, his daughter had died a few hours earlier. His wife was pregnant. The daughter was born with the cord wrapped around her neck, and she died. And I've been, you know, we had an incident years ago. It was just a small thing, but a student, we were chopping wood. He picked up a pile of wood and a little splinter blew in his eye. So I've been to the hospital, and I know that it's phenomenal. We got great care, and I know that across the street is the Navajo Hospital, and it is anything but wonderful. You know, it's a line halfway down the street. They're understaffed, underprepared. They lack the resources in every way imaginable. You know, and this guy says, you know, the story is that, you know, after this had happened, you know, he was told that, you know, he can't stay here. There's only one hospital on the reservation that I know of for the Navajo, and it wasn't anywhere near, you know, where he lived. So the staff there said, like, you know, you can't stay here. There's one room where his wife was staying, which means that she's staying in this big room with presumably other women who have just successfully given birth, and how horrible that is. But for him, they said, you know, you're out on your own, man. Like, and they did at the very least say, hey, there's a shelter in Gallup. This is how to get there. And he went right there. And then we're talking about God's love, and, you know, suddenly I'm starting to understand, you know, why this guy has a big old chip on his shoulder. And I just stood there and talked to him for a little while, and it was fine. It was, I was grateful in that moment just to be, you know, in conversation with this guy. You know, but like 20 minutes later, I'm over in the corner helping out by the door, and kids are kind of cleaning up the dinner, and I heard an argument. You know, and it wasn't a physical fight, but someone was screaming, and I remember it literally. This was 20 minutes later, and the first thought I had was, please don't let it be Alf. His name was Allison, and for those of you who are a little older, you may remember the television show called Alf. It was about an alien, he ate cats and all that. It was his mom's favorite show, so she called him Alf. And I said, please don't let it be Alf. Please don't let it be Alf. And I looked over, and of course it's Alf. And he's screaming at this, like, seemingly, like, 80-year-old man. I mean, alcoholism on the reservation does tend to age people. I have no idea how old he was, but he looked like an elderly guy. And there Alf is getting into it with him and saying that he stole his jacket, and he's getting that. One of the nuns goes and literally grabs him by the ear, and she's hauling him, you know, towards the door, and she's saying, "You're drunk, you're this," and my gut just really wanted her to know, like, no, he's not. He has not been drinking. I'm trying to tell her, he's been, you know. And at this point, he's so embarrassed because she's talking about the volunteers, and he's made them feel unsafe. And he says, can I apologize to the volunteers? And he does. You know, he walks around, and it was humiliating. And lo and behold, the older guy had stolen his jacket. He wasn't wrong about it. And I went and got his jacket. and he made it the rounds to each of our students to apologize for his behavior. And I'm walking him to the door, and I just said, I'm worried about him. The leading cause of death on the Navajo reservation outside of alcoholism is exposure. Is literally freezing to death, and it's going to be cold. And I'm asking him, I'm like, do you have some place to go? Is there? And he says, it's fine. Please don't worry about me. I'll be all right. He said, can you do me one favor though? And I said, of course. What can I do? And he says, can you pray for me? I said, of course. Because when something bad happens, what we do as people of faith is we say, I'll pray for you. You're in my thoughts. You're in my prayers. And there's nothing disingenuous, by the way. I don't mean that as a snide thing, but it's something we say. What I was taken aback by was he didn't move anywhere. Because when I say, tonight when I get home and before I go to sleep, I will think of him and I will say a prayer for him. And I look down and I just see these. I just see him standing there with his hands out. And I'm like, oh, you mean now? And it was just this remarkable moment for me. It's a stay awake, when you least expect it, I'm there. And I swear to you, I took this man's hands and I put my forehead practically to his, like it was like a huddle. And I just said whatever words came out of my mouth, some semblance of a prayer, and for his safety, for his wife's safety, for all of those things. And I just thanked him. And in that moment, I felt so exceedingly embraced, by our faith, for me and this guy, that the two of us were so close to the presence of God in that moment. And, I think for me today, and every day, that's such a great opportunity. But the invitation from today's reading for me, with that whole idea of stay awake, you never know where you're going to find me, is as I go through, it's late, I don't know if you can see out my windows, but for tomorrow, and for Thursday when these readings actually happen, it's one of those things where I need to really ask myself as I go through my day, am I aware of the opportunity to find God in this moment? Or am I so caught up in what I think is supposed to be happening that I could have missed it? Because I could have easily missed him. I just got lucky that he came to me. And we have this great opportunity as people of faith to always be hungry for the opportunity to see and to hear that presence of God in our lives. To hold the hands of Jesus, to pray with him, and to be grateful for him. So I am continually grateful for memories like that, and for the experience of my faith, and for our faith, and for our faith community, as we do kind of inch our way back. I had a group of graduates at the church outside, socially distanced, for the equivalent of what felt like a little Faith 365 meeting last week. So it does feel like we're slowly but surely kind of getting back to something that feels closer to normal. And that's exciting because we have a beautiful building, a wonderful staff that I get to be a part of, and I'm so glad that you're all here and a part of our community as well. So I've gone a little bit longer this week, so I apologize, and I'm going to run, but have a wonderful, wonderful day, and I'll look forward to hopefully seeing you soon.